They believed that there's going to come a time where the UFOs are going to pick them up and take them off planet. They believe that it will come just as the destruction of the planet happened, and people will be left behind. Now, doesn't that sound similar to the rapture?
Welcome back to another episode of Strange Normal. My name is Brad Burnham, and we look into the strange events that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of the things that are happening in your strange world. And we've got an amazing episode lined up tonight. But before we get into it, please subscribe and hit that little bell so you can be notified when we release another video. We do these regularly, and you want to be notified when things like this appear on our channel, because this one, especially this one, is really interesting tonight. Also, if you find this information valuable, please check out the description to see the links on how to support us. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Arne has had some incredible life experiences, and the knowledge she's able to bring to the table is second to none. She started out in meditation and progressed to the New Age movement, which brought her a slew of spiritual attacks. Fortunately, she came out the other side with Christ. So without further ado, let's get right into her story. Thank you for coming on tonight, Lee. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me on your show. It's such a blessing. So I'm married. I live in Melbourne, Australia. I grew up in a non-Christian family, and I was an alien experiencer. I fell into New Age. Now I'm a Christian counsellor, and I've come out of all the New Age, the spiritual warfare. I went through quite a battle, and I'm on the other side and teaching people about Jesus Christ and how he can change your life completely. And if you're into occult practices or anything, as we know, it can really open you up spiritually, where you can get all sorts of warfare and attacks. If it doesn't happen, it's just a matter of time when it happens. Sorry.
No, that's fascinating. So you are an experiencer, number one, and you've come out of that movement and realized and came to Christ. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Wow. So tell me more about how that happened.
So going back about 10 years or more, I began to meditate. So I had a lot of free time on my hands. My kids were getting older. They were doing hobbies and different things. So I decided to do something for myself. So I looked at doing meditation, because I thought that would be good for me, keep me calm and just clear my head. And I started meditating, and along the way, it led to all different types of modalities, and it opened me up, and I became extremely psychic. As I went deeper into that journey, I began to see UFOs. I saw my first UFO when I was 12.
Hold on just for a second. What is a modality? Is that what you said?
Yeah, different practices, different modalities. So you could have, for example, Reiki. Another modality would be yoga. Another modality could be...
Wow.
So as the journey went on, I opened myself up to so many more spiritual type practices, which in turn made things worse.
So using all these different modalities, I've never even heard that word before. Fascinating. It probably shows how much I haven't looked into this, because it's really me learning about this for the first time, and I'm understanding what's going on that causes these kind of things to happen. I think you're going to provide a lot of information to that tonight, which I'm really fascinated about. So please continue.
I do find that people who are having UFO experiences and alien abduction or alien experiences, they're also doing lots of other occult style practices. So I became involved in meditation, and it took me into this whole deception. I began to run groups. I had 6 groups worldwide, and we were promoting seminars and guest speakers. And looking back, we were pushing that narrative. So we were promoting that aliens were here because I was having those type of experiences. And my husband had a few experiences too. He, in fact, saw an alien grey on his work site. Oh. He went to work one day. He was an arborist, and he went to a property to chop down all these trees. And at the end through the whole day, he felt like he was being watched. Now, at the end of the day, when he was packing up his work vehicle, he saw in the trees, in the bushes, an alien grey that was about 3 to 4 foot tall, and it was staring at him, and his whole body began to vibrate. Now, he had... Sorry, go ahead.
I've heard of this before, and I want to explain what an alien gray is to those who don't understand, because we have a variety of audience here. The gray, if I understand this correct, is a specific look to this figure that is portrayed as alien. I'm using my finger quotes, but this humanoid, which I mean humanoid by its bipedal creature, is gangly with big eyes, and you've seen it before as the classic Hollywood alien look, and they call it a gray, and sometimes they make it green. Is that right? But it's usually a gray skin color. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And they have the big bulbous head, and they have that little spindly body, as you said. So that's what he saw. And it completely turned his world upside down. And we've been on this journey together, and we've both come out the other end knowing that these are demons, these are demonic entities. And the only way to rid them, if they're interfering in your life, is through the authority of Jesus Christ. And so through this, we became Christians, and now we're helping people come through their experiences and to see the truth. So it's been a phenomenal journey. It's been, what can I say, eye-opening and very interesting.
So how did you? I mean, that's the 30,000 foot level, right? You were experiencing this stuff because you got involved with meditation, and then all this stuff started happening, and then somehow you got realized that this stuff can be stopped by calling on the name of Jesus, and that's really the only way that is able to stop this stuff. How did you come across this? Did you find research, or did you find someone that told you about it, or what happened?
Well, for me, I started to have, if I could go back and talk about the experiences I had.
Yeah, please.
And I got to a state of such desperation and spiritual warfare, which I'll tell you about, that I simply had to cry out to Jesus, because I really needed this whole thing to stop. And I'll tell you a little bit about those experiences and how it worked up to calling out to Jesus. So during the years, I would wake up with, actually, I'll start with the meditations. I started to have visualizations of these beings, and I didn't know what they were at first. And one of them had a cape with a high collar, and he had an elongated head, and his skin was sort of a greeny clay color. And he would appear in my dreams, and he would appear in a hypnotherapy session, which I had.
Wow.
Which was about the experience of that craft I saw when I was 12, because there was a missing time episode.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I began to investigate what is this being. I had heard of the term aliens before, so it segmented in my mind that this was an alien and he was having some kind of contact experience with me. As the years went by, I saw lots of scratches. I would wake up with scratches and bruises and droplets of blood on the pillow or on the sheets. At one time, I had a missing pregnancy, which was confirmed by the doctor that I was pregnant.
Oh.
When I went for the sonogram, it revealed an empty sac. And I was at that stage 14 weeks pregnant.
Oh, wow.
This, I didn't want to research too much into that because it was too fearful for me. It was something I just couldn't look into at the time. But what happened, there could have been a natural reason for that. However, because I was having all the other experiences, in my mind, I thought this was something to do with these aliens and they had taken my baby.
Wow.
So there's a lot of deception, and we have to sort what's fact from fiction. And this is the hard thing. So I knew it was, in my mind, I thought it was something sinister. I would often be awakened by a female being that just looked human, but a lot skinnier. And this being had long hair. And sometimes she would just wake me up in the early hours of the morning and say, go outside. So what happened when I'd wake up, it's like I'd feel a tap and I'd wake up. I'd see this figure for a second, but then it would disappear.
Wow.
And that happened a few times. One time it grabbed my ankles and was trying to pull me out the bottom of the bed.
Wow.
I was kicking and screaming, and I told my husband, well, I was screaming. So my husband woke up and said, what's happening? I said, I just saw a person. I just saw a person try and grab me out of my bed.
Oh.
So a lot of these experiences for me were traumatic. And I do want to mention that I had a very traumatic childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And with working with clients myself as a counsellor, before I came to Christ, I was actually working with people who had had other experiences as well as a counsellor for these people. And I ran support groups in my home. And I started to notice a lot of the people having these experiences would have some kind of a traumatic upbringing.
Huh.
And their life was, or their family life was quite destructive and not very pleasant, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just an interesting dynamic to look at. There was one time when I was meditating, and this is really what I've come to know as what people might call a devil's prophecy. I didn't know anything like that at the time. I fell into this thinking meditation was good for me.
Mm-hmm.
However, during this meditation, I had that being who said my father was going to die.
Oh, no.
The meditation was 2007, and it gave me the year 2008, and it gave me JJ. And I didn't think, well, what's this JJ? But looking at the months, you've got June and July. I I put it to the back of my mind because I didn't know what to do with that information. But as it turned out, the next year, my father did die in June, and he died at the top of Australia. I'm at the bottom. They went on a holiday, and when they were traveling, he passed away. And so he died in June, but his body wasn't flown back till July, and the funeral was July.
Oh my goodness.
So when I think about that now, I think God doesn't work like that. God will not say that. So,
but they were trying to get you to believe that they were a legitimate entity that could predict the future, even get into, maybe even get you into talking to them about what could possibly be in the future. I've seen people go to psychics and stuff like this to try to find their future out, and that's kind of how we get in so much trouble, because if we let the devil predict our future, we could get in all kinds of trouble, just like Saul in the Bible, right?
Right. And there's a lot of there's a lot of people in occult practices. There's psychics, mediums, and people doing tarot and all this kind of thing. And we know that they're speaking to familiar spirits. Mm-hmm. Now, what happened with my dad, that was one of the key things that got me to think and ponder more deeply about these experiences and think, it seems rather odd that they'd tell me about a death, and it came true. So it was like a crack started to appear, and I started to question things. But it takes time to wake up to these experiences. And as I said in the beginning, I wasn't brought up in a Christian family, but you can see how important to have a biblical truth and a biblical understanding is to stop all these deceptions. Mm-hmm. So getting back with the experiences I had, we moved to a house, and I was holding these experiencer support meetings in my home and counselling these people. And we had the most spiritual warfare we ever had. We would have pictures that you hang on the wall were crooked. Every day I'd have to straighten them. Wow. We had the sounds of craft above the roof. You'd hear this boom, 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 like a vibration. We had strange lights in the sky. We'd have our lights that were on in the house would flicker on and off. So there was this paranormal stuff happening. We had black helicopters surround us all the time. One time I went out and this helicopter was just filming. We had white vans follow us, taking pictures of us. So it became a real spiritual warfare battle, and almost like being stalked. Yeah. Strange phone calls, threatening phone calls, and the number was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh, wow.
It was just totally weird, and people would send me messages. And we're going back years when we had mobile phones, but they weren't the smartphones that we had now. And they would send this little alien head picture with the message. And I'd think, well, that's weird, because they don't know I'm going through these experiences. Why are they sending me this little thing? So that happened on about 10 occasions. And when I asked them, why did you send a little emoji like that? They said, no, I didn't send that. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. Oh. So there was interference with computers and technology and phones and all sorts of things. And we also got involved in the Bigfoot, experience.
Oh, wow. And fascinating. So Bigfoot is attached to the, now, For the record,
Absolutely.
I've read 3/4 of your testimony. You sent me quite a book to read, and it's
Sorry.
really fascinating, but I didn't get through the whole thing, but about 3/4 of it. And I really thought it was fascinating that the whole Bigfoot thing is tied into this supernatural stuff that's happening. I'm really curious about this because this is not a subject we've covered on this channel yet, but it
Yeah.
certainly is a topic that is worthy of discussion. So yeah, please go on.
Well, a lot of people who believe they're aliens from out of space also believe that the Bigfoot are aliens or part of that alien race, just another type of being. So, in fact, all of it is demonic. Now, whether it appears to look like a beautiful Pleiadian star person, or whether it appears like the Greys or a mantid being or a Bigfoot, they're all one and the same. They're all demonic entities
Yes.
that have the ability to shapeshift, to appear to however they see fit to deceive you. So what's interesting, when I was a teenager, I was reading books about Bigfoot and aliens. Now, it's if people examine, to anyone that might be listening that is having the alien or Bigfoot phenomena, when people examine what they've done or what they've opened themselves up to, they might have said, oh, I'd love to see a Bigfoot, or I'd love to see an alien. And people say this all the time, but you've got to be careful what you ask for, because they're opening up that spiritual door. And the next thing you know, they're actually seeing them. They're actually having these encounters.
Wow.
So this does happen. So I had 3 experiences with that Bigfoot. One that we had was down this near a cave, and we call them yowies here. And so it came thrashing through the bush and snapping branches, and you could hear the heavy footprints. And I was just sitting there, and I mean, most people would have just got up and ran, but I just sat there calmly and just said, he's not going to touch me. He's not going to touch me. And he came as close as probably 5 meters to me, and he was just sort of charging to me. And then he turned, and I heard telepathically in my head, I'm just going to let you see me for a second. And then he turned and went up the hill, and my husband heard everything, but he didn't see it because he was actually up a little higher at the back. It's hard to describe, but he heard it, and it was crazy. It was crazy.
My mind is blown. What in the world? That close? And so does it? I know these things are demonic, but I have to ask you: does it look like the pictures?
Yes, it does. And when I saw that, in my mind said, that's a man in a gorilla suit. You know, that and then I thought, no, that's this, you know, that's how the mind sort of summed it up quickly, because it just looked like a man in a gorilla suit. And we were down in this place, which is, like no one was there. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there was no other people around. And so I realized quickly, no, it's not a man in a gorilla suit. That is a yowie.
Yowie. Wow.
And it was at that time that we were, you know, into all of that.
So,
and
so how would you, I'm putting the pieces together. And since these things, are the same substance. They are demonic. They are from the same
Right.
deception as these UFOs and aliens.
Yeah.
Do you summon them the same way through like this meditation or CE5? How would you come across this? And I'm not doing this to ask to show people how to,
no.
but I'm curious
Yeah.
about putting the pieces together.
Yeah. So going back then when we were involved in that, we didn't know much about it because we had a bit to do with the Australian Indigenous people, and they don't talk about it because it invokes them, and they believe them to be bad. However, in America, everyone loves Bigfoot, and they sort of like chase Bigfoot and hunt Bigfoot. And we got involved with a few groups on Facebook. And when I started to have these experiences, I just think it opened me up, and they were saying these beings are friendly and they're here to help humanity. I was actually in a book called, I'll go back a bit. So we went to Washington State twice, and we spoke at conferences because we'd seen them. And they're sort of involved with American Indians, and they do things to conjure them up, like they have drumming ceremonies, and they sing certain songs, which is sort of like a Sasquatch type song, and I wouldn't recommend listening to it. But they do all of this, and so we kind of got dragged into that a little bit, and there's a guy called Kiwani Lapsaritis who writes a book and says that they're here to help humanity and everything. And they wrote this book called Sasquatch Message to Humanity. I think it's book 3, and there were 12 authors, and I was part of that book. However, when God brought me out, he convicted me and asked me to remove my story from that book. And the author wouldn't, but I said, okay, that's fine. Can you just change my name? Because I didn't want anything more to do with it. You have to rid yourself completely of everything. So looking at how these communities, they gather, they do smoking ceremonies, they do drumming circles, and they literally conjure up the Sasquatch.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of drugs are involved with this? Because you said it was smoking. Is it just smoking as in smoke signals, or is it actually?
No, it's American Indians do what they call a smoking ceremony. So they get kind of like, what do you call it? Smudge sticks, and they smoke in a teepee, and it's just all this smoke, and they stay in there, and it becomes like a sweat lodge.
Okay.
And
so it's like hot boxing of a bunch of smoke, so you inhale it.
Yeah, and it's kind of somehow, I never did that because it didn't seem right to me. There's a lot of things I didn't do because it's almost like something was stopping me. It was almost like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I can't really give you specific detail because I didn't actually do it firsthand.
Well, it's interesting to me because a lot of times what I've discovered is drugs are involved because they inhibit the frontal lobe, which is our decision part of our brain. And if we damage that or not damage it, but even inhibit it, even with just alcohol, it slows down our ability to say no to these entities. And it can be damaging because then the entity can enter you. He can possess you. He could do stuff to you that's beyond your ability to say no. And that's the dangerous part. So it fascinates me that oftentimes drugs are related to this thing, and it just gives me more proof that it's demonic.
Yeah, a lot of people do DMT to have that out-of-body experience and meet with these entities. It's so dangerous. It's just incredibly dangerous. Yeah. But for people in those communities that are working with the Sasquatch, you know, they get gifts, they get rocks and twigs, and for them it's such a big deal because it's like, wow, you know, it's tangible evidence. But I've heard some really scary stories about these entities. And see, with the, they are kind of, it's not like they're flesh and blood like us, but they can slip in and out of these, of the veil, the dimensions. And when they come through here, they are in a physical, they manifest physically. How do you account for the scratches, the bruises, those type of things? And, you know, I mean, that's some physicality to it. I'm not saying it's total flesh blood physicality, but yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that. How do you account for that? Because if you have had things that have happened, yeah, you just don't know. I don't think we'll fully understand it until we get to heaven. But I do know
agree
that
with that. Yeah.
It's demonic, it's deceptive, and it's an amazing thing that's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen right up until the end.
And at the time I thought it was fascinating, but now it's just to me it's just a deception.
Wow.
And there's nothing fascinating about it. And there's whole communities that are worshipping the Bigfoot.
Yeah. And
they're leaving it food, and they're leaving you know, gifts, and something's taking it, and it's a deception they're getting sucked into. And it's a little bit like, and it's probably a bad analogy, but it's a good one to get my point across. When a pedophile grooms a child, they're always giving it lollies or grooming over time to really create the indication that that person's a friend, to build the trust. And these are no different. It's all the works of Satan. They build your trust. They trick you. They seduce you to come into their world and to seek them. But it's always on their terms. They never appear when you ask. It's always on their terms. And that's something people need to realise. Why is it always on their terms? Because it's all part of their deception. They're very manipulative. They're masters of deceit and manipulation. So the great UFO and alien deception. UFO alien enthusiasts around the world have fallen for a grand deception on a massive scale, and it's getting bigger and bigger. They believe that either all ETs or many races of ETs are here to save humanity from destruction that's about to come upon the earth. What that is actually God's wrath. Many people are worshipping them and openly trying to communicate with them. They use various contact modalities, such as the CE5, where they have the lasers meditation, and they point them to the craft, or, you know, and the craft will do a power up and flash and all sorts of, you know, signs and wonders, which gets people really sucked in, that, you know, into this whole belief that they're from outer space. There's a contact apps you can put on your phone. They have frequencies and tones to attract them. There's all sorts of things. And people have been told by channeling these so-called aliens, which really are demonic spirits, that they're here to help humanity, but they're also the creators of humans. And this is one of the biggest lies. And I know you know this, Brad, because you've talked about it in your work that you do.
Yeah.
And the star seeds is a term that these people believe that they're actually half-breeds of aliens themselves. They believe that they're a hybrid themselves, and they call themselves star seeds.
Wow.
They are created, they believe that they're created by aliens, and they also believe that God and the Bible is just a fairy tale. So you can see the deception is taking people on a journey away from the truth.
Yeah.
The truth of the one and only God. And that's down a path of destruction. That it sends them on this path of destruction.
Well, so you've introduced a lot of new terminology that I didn't even know about. Star seeds are something that I haven't even delved into. I've heard of Palladians and a lot of the other characters that the devil uses to try to trick people, and I think they're going to play a big part in the season to come. But it's all a deception. Exactly what you said. It's all a lie. But that's
right.
That's fascinating. Please go on.
I'd like to quote Matthew 7:14. It says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the way that leads to life, and only few find it." So it's talking about Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And that's the path that people want to take. What I feel these entities are soulless demonic entities, fallen angels masquerading as supposed ET races. They're not from outer space or other planets. They're definitely interdimensional, and they can slip through the veil and pop into our physical plane. They can appear as a solid form. You know, people can see the Sasquatch. People can see the ET. They appear solid and physical.
They do appear solid, and that's what's amazing about this. You know, I actually had a producer friend of mine who we recorded a show at a studio called Little Light Studios, where we were together with him. He was talking about his film, and one of the stories he mentioned, and this isn't out yet on their channel, so this is like content that is going to be released this week. And so people that are watching this right now, if you're watching right when the video comes out, you're going to see this clip, and it's not going to be released yet. But what he talks about in here is exactly what you're talking about. He says that he had, or he knew people that had relatives that appeared to them that were dead. And the Bible tells us not to talk to the dead. Ever, 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 right? So when these people appeared, they said they could feel their breath, they could feel their body heat, they said they could feel their heartbeat. I mean, these things didn't come right through the wall. They appeared as physical beings impersonating things. And that's something that's going to confuse a lot of people. Take a look.
I had done a TV interview, and I was talking about the screenplay for this story, Roger Morneau's story, and I was talking about how we were going to be looking for a script writer to help us, to partner with. And a couple days after that interview, I got a phone call from a lady who talked about how she had been a writer in Hollywood during the late 70s, early 80s. She was very successful at the program she had done. Now she's retired and she has time, and she would love to help. Well, do you partner with people before you find out a little bit about their worldview?
No. You shouldn't. Yeah, usually not.
So we chatted for a while, and as we were talking, she let me know that she was a Sunday Protestant, that she went to church faithfully every Sunday, and we were talking, and then she said, you know, my son passed away 15 years ago, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry. She said, oh, that's okay. He came to visit me 2 years ago. I said, really? She said, oh, yes. She said, I was in my master bedroom getting dressed one morning, and he walked right through the door like he did when he was alive. and came and sat down on the bed next to me and gave me a big hug. And I said, Esther, can I interrupt you? She said, sure, what is it? I said, can I ask you a question just to clarify? This was not a spirit that came through the wall. This was a physical body that came through the doorway and sat down. She said, absolutely.
You had to open the door.
She said he had his hand on the doorknob. He came in. She said he sat down next to me, and these were the proofs. Because remember, seeing and feeling and hearing is becoming the nature of reality for the world. If you see it, you believe it.
It's becoming truth.
It's becoming their truth.
Right.
Right. And so she said, I felt the breath on my neck. I felt the warmth of his skin. He embraced me, and I felt his heartbeat.
That's crazy. That's scary.
Yeah, how would she just not like
She was
freak
describing
out?
it in detail. Very physical characteristics. And then she said, he didn't stay long, and he didn't say much. He got up, and before he went back through the door, he turned around and he said to me, thanks, Mom, for getting the word out. Everything is light, love, and eternity on the other side.
Wow.
And he turned around and he went back through the door, and she hasn't seen that manifestation of her son since then.
The Bible tells us never to talk to the dead. And
Right.
and it was fascinating to me to realize that these spirits can manifest themselves into physical form. I mean, how big does this, how broad is this deception? It's just,
Yeah.
it was phenomenal to me. Anyway, go on. I don't want to take away from your story, but that's a revelation.
but you're exactly right. I mean, their deception is big, and they can appear, like you said, in that physical form. It's mind-blowing. Yes, and the physical form is just that deception to really trick you into believing that that's real. There's a grand plan for all this ET UFO things, and it's been in the making forever. And I believe that there's a huge deception coming. And, you know, we've been seeing UFOs in the sky for a long time, probably after 1945 or the 50s. Everything's just escalated. But in the last 10 years, everything has even escalated again. It's just gone through the
Exponential.
roof. Yes, it's crazy. When I was in the New Age circles, this is what people would talk about. So I'm going to touch on those things. They believed that there's going to come a time where the UFOs are going to pick them up and take them off planet. They believe that it will come just as the destruction of the planet happens. They believe that these alien beings are going to rescue them and take them to a fifth dimensional plane and a new Earth. And it's all about, they talk all about the frequency and the ascension. And they say that if your frequency isn't high enough, you won't make it, you won't go. And people will be left behind. Now, doesn't that sound similar to the rapture?
Yeah,
And
I was just
doesn't it
thinking that.
sound similar to how God's promised the new earth for us? So Satan has a way of twisting doctrine to deceive, but also to suit himself and his plan. So I just thought that's a very interesting take.
Well, it is very interesting because what I find here is the most fascinating part of this, and I'm going to get off on a tangent here just for a second because I think that you've stumbled upon something that I have never seen or put together before, and I think most of us on this channel haven't put together before, that this rapture, or I guess they would call the secret rapture, might be completely a demonic prophecy. Now follow me on this, because there are two lines of thought on the rapture. One, has been conjured up by a movie called Left Behind, which you have people falling out of the sky or planes falling out of the sky. You have all kinds of people disappearing, and then you have a second chance. But we find nowhere in the Bible where there's a second chance. People got onto the ark, the door closed, and that was it. There was no, hey, it's raining now you guys can get on the ark. I mean, it is done. And Jesus parallels these two events in history, the second coming with the ark. There's no second chances. So what's really interesting is that the Bible says that the rapture, the true rapture, is going to be loud. I mean, I think Revelation says every eye will see him. Psalm says there's going to be storms surrounding him when he comes in. And I think Paul says in the Corinthians that there's going to be loud trumpets. So there's not going to be any form of this that's going to be quiet. And I don't want to take away from what you're saying, but it's truly fascinating what you've found.
Yes, definitely. So when I was a researcher and a counsellor dealing with the people who were having the experiences as I was myself, I worked with these people, and I took down lots of notes because I wanted to back that up for my own research and development in that area. So I'd like to talk about what my research was about, and what it revealed. So I found I broke it down to two categories. There are people having experiences with what they think are ETs and seeing UFOs. Now, some call themselves an experiencer. And when you look at those people, they mainly have positive experiences of more benevolent type. For the person that would classify themselves as an alien abductee, the experiences would predominantly be more malevolent. So it's interesting that they sort of have, one would call themselves an experiencer, the other one would call themselves an abductee. Although they're both similar, some have good experiences and some have bad. However, what my research shows is that the people that claim to have good experiences also have negative experiences, but they don't talk about it. Now, I don't know why they don't talk about it, but there is a lot of thing in the new age that if you're having negative experiences, you're attracting it, and you're getting what they would call attachments. What it really is, it's all demonic, and you're getting demonic oppression, but they don't see it like that. So in the New Age circles where everything's love and light, they wouldn't talk about the negative things because you're perceived as being negative.
So wait for a second there. I like those key words you said. I'm very fascinated. Did you say love and light because of what I talked about earlier, or is that a term that is often used in the cult?
It's often used.
Wow.
And it's often used to, a lot of people would sign off on a message, love and light.
Wow.
You know, as we would say, God bless, they'd say love and light, because everything in New Age is supposed to be all love and light, but it's not like that. But when people have bad experiences, they don't talk about it because the other people would perceive them as having attachments or negative energies, when in actual fact, it's really demonic oppression.
Yeah.
And when people come out of the New Age or occult practices, they nearly all need deliverance, and they would be delivered through God, through Jesus. These entities are masters of manipulation and deception, as I've said. They're super intelligent. They're fallen angels. Superior beings, that have left their first estate because they've fallen, but they're very intelligent beings. They have supernatural powers and capabilities. These beings, they're alien beings, they're imposters, and quite often they're represented as being benevolent, friendly, but they're not.
And, I find that really interesting because that's brought up a lot. I've read in the forums and how these things are benevolent, but we see nothing benevolent about them. I mean, very few times have I heard stories about, they took me, they showed me around, and they ended up teaching me about some bad religious practice or telling me that Jesus wasn't actually a god or something like that. But usually it's they've lights on a farm and cattle are dead, or they've had some crazy abductions. Even the government has had pilots die from this thing. They've had radiation poisoning from getting too close to these round things of light. I mean, this is all declassified stuff. This is really fascinating stuff that everyone thinks that these things are benevolent.
Yeah.
And how are they? I mean, it blows my mind to think how is this going to play in if it's obvious that all this stuff is happening that's not benevolent. How is that going to be play into the deception into time? How is that going to be part of the narrative that the devil uses? Is he going to say, hey, we got one team that's bad and that's the Antichrist, and the other team is good and I'm the good team, and we're going to help prevent the destruction of this world? I don't know. Maybe it's not good to theorize, but it's really interesting that people suddenly think these things are benevolent. Anyway, go on. I'm rabbit trailing.
Well, they do believe that there's different races, and they believe that there's good races of ETs and there's bad races of ETs. Personally, myself, I believe they're all demonic.
All demonic, yeah.
All demonic. There is no good. There's no good and bad. They're all bad. The people are just deceived.
The good ones, they don't want to have anything to do with this earth right now. We're quarantined. Sin is a disease. It's a habitual disease. And although God sends his good angels down here to help us, they're not going to reveal themselves like Satan has. And that's right. That's really fascinating. Go on.
Yeah. So working with these clients, I've compiled together my notes, and I'm revealing what they actually said happened to them. And if it's very interesting when you look at these things, they would claim to have experiences with friendly ETs, even though all the things I'm about to tell you took place, yet they cannot see that this is strange or a negative thing. So some of those things on the list that I've compiled is what would happen in the encounters. And it says on that list there is DNA collection, excruciating examinations and procedures, physical evidence of scarring. So receiving physical deposits of material within the body, or they would call them implants. They would describe the beings taking samples of skin, hair, and semen. They would describe sexual encounters with the entities, both male and female. Now, some would say they were Pleiadian, reptilian, mantid beings, or other grotesque type figures.
What is a mantid being? What's that?
A mantid being, it has a particular look. It's sort of tall, skinny, with an elongated head.
Okay.
And it has very long fingers. And people describe the mantid beings as being great healers. And people would often report that they would come and do healings on them by these beings. So the more sexual beings that we know in the demonic kingdom is the incubus and the succubus.
Yeah, I've read history accounts of that, where it sits on top of your chest and prevents you from breathing and stuff.
Yeah, and it can be linked with the sleep paralysis as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A variety of different entities could be present at one time. So speaking to these clients I had, they would always say that, for example, if back then I did regression hypnosis, which I don't do anymore, because I feel that's also a gateway for these entities to come in. But they would describe, when I was doing a hypnosis, they would describe that the being is right there present in the room with them.
Oh.
And quite often you would hear a pop sound or a knock in the room, but you wouldn't be able to pinpoint where that came from. So these are some of the paranormal things that would come with that.
During hypnosis.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of the experiences would say that there was a uniformed military present involved in the abduction experience, and they'd have visitations, dreams, or visions by these hybrid type beings, and they were told by the beings that were present in their abduction experience that these babies, these hybrid children, were theirs. They were part theirs.
Oh my goodness. So these you said there's a military presence. Would they manifest themselves as humanoid military, or was that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Quite often they would have an American accent.
Oh wow. Great.
Yeah. People would often leave their body, have an out-of-body experience, and they would often find their clothing would be removed or put back on, back to front, or inside out. Wow. So they would have an experience, and they'd wake up, and their pajamas or whatever were inside out. Now, I had when I was having these experiences, my daughter had, on 2 occasions, she said, Mummy, did you take my clothes off during the night?
Oh my goodness.
And her pajamas were rolled up in a very weird way on the floor. I don't know what that was about. I don't know. Often the experiencer would be asked to perform tests or puzzles in the experience, and they didn't always have a choice too. They were told to do it. They weren't asked. So that's interesting to note too. And often they were told, if you perform this task, then you can go home. So it's like a bribe. There's a bribe involved.
And so this is the demonic agency telling them to do this through an alien deception, or is this?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So you can see there's a lot of manipulation involved. And of course, there's the missing fetuses, which happens and has been recorded with a lot of people, usually at 13 to 14 weeks. Remember, these experiences are complex and convoluted, and we can't just pluck answers as if we know what's going on, because it's layer upon layer, and you really need to dissect it. Even myself, I don't have all the answers. And I don't think it's possible to have all the answers, because we know how to stop it, and it's Jesus that stops it.
Yes.
And Jesus will put you back onto the right path, and all the experiences will go away. But I don't think we have all the answers about everything that's happening.
Is there a lot of women that experience this? I mean, I'm sure it's a percentage, but it's not like 1, 2, or 3 that you've had come to you. This is a phenomenon that's happened many times, correct?
It's happening worldwide. I couldn't give you a percentage, but then it's also happening to people who we never hear from as well. I've never told anyone about my experience because if you told a doctor or for any of these experiences, whether you've got cuts, bruises, anything, doctors, they're not going to help you.
They throw it
They're
out.
actually going to prescribe psychiatric medications and whatnot. So,
but the fact that it's so there's so I used to believe that this was a part of this must be psychiatric or something too, but when you stack the evidence and you see patterns that come into this stuff, and this happened and this happened and this happened and that happened to the same person, and that exact story happened to another person, and that exact story happened to another person. When you see these patterns, you have to go, this is not a mind game. This is not something the mind's making up. This is something that's someone else's mind is implanting in them, because this is very strange. Yeah,
I do want to say, when people are having these experiences, it's very real. It's very real, and there's physicality to it, but it's not what people think. There's a grand deception happening, and it involves evil entities. And once you get them out of the way and resume your life as normal, you can see clearly for what it really is and for what it was for that person. But it's happening all over the world. Many, many, many people reporting, different experiences, including the missing pregnancies. And also, when you have a miscarriage, the fetus is inside an amniotic sac, and all of that will come out. But like myself and other women, the sac is still in place, it's empty. So also in the research, when these things were happening to them, which were what I would classify as horrific, samples being taken, they're waking up with bruises and scratches. And yet they would say that most of their experiences were good, were friendly. So when you question a person about that, looking a little deeper, why they say that, and some of the things they would claim is that the beings would say they have to go through a process of these experimentation, and these beings would tell them it's for their benefit, that it's for the good of humanity, and that the aliens are there to help us. So they're really feeding into their mind that deception. And they're told that these experiences, they have a role to play, and for the experiencer going through all of this, it's their mission here at this time. And they say the good will come later. So these are some of the things that they were said. And it's like they're under a form of a hypnotic spell, type of a mind control with the whole experience. And the experiencer becomes very compliant to what they say and to what they're told to do. And you have to wonder why they do that. And if you look at people who have Stockholm syndrome, they tend to sympathize with the person that's manipulating them. And it's a way that they're being programmed to accept their fate, or to accept that this is their mission. And so they just go along with it. Another thing I noticed is that the experiencer often feel like they're chosen. They have this sense that they're selected for this major purpose, which will be an event in the future to come.
Wow.
They're given priority over these entities, over other human beings. So what I mean by that is some have authoritarian roles, and that could be government leaders, for example, or it could be people that play a part, and I don't want to mention names, but some people are steering the alien UFO agendas and doing, say, CE5, for example, and their personalities are very well known, and they're actually steering people in that direction. And so I believe that these people playing those roles have been manipulated from these entities to take that authoritarian charge. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I hope I explained that well.
I think you did. Yeah.
Many believe that they're Earth ambassadors and leaders, and they're on this mission and they can't let it go because that's their task. And they have such an overwhelming, strong force behind that. They feel this force is pushing them to drive them forward. And it's really could be possession of a demon or just a stronghold that's over their life. What else can I tell you? They all say things like, I've agreed to be on this planet at this time. This is my incarnation to be on this planet at this time. So they believe in the reincarnation, and they've been specifically scheduled for this time in their life. And I too believe some of that stuff, because I felt that overwhelming force and drive. And when I came out of New Age, I was delivered. So it all went. So it's definitely like a stronghold. They have these beings tend to put people in relationships with other people. There's a lot of experiences will split up with their families, and Satan comes to destroy, kill, and steal. And they split up with their husbands, their wives, and they link up with other experiences, believing they're both soul partners on a mission together. And you'll hear terms like, twin flame, soul tie, and twin soul. And so they literally believe they're made to be together at this time to get the job done, whatever the job is. And it's a mission from these so-called aliens. And there's many alien UFOs group promoting occult practices, and they're run by very famous people in aerospace programs. And I want to warn people, please take this warning, come out of it, because these occult practices are going to open you up to the demonic realms.
Are you talking about the occult practices like remote viewing and things like that?
Yeah. Yes. So what I'm actually saying is there's groups that affiliate themselves with promoting encounters with ET races. I don't want to drop names, but if people can read through the lines of what I'm saying, they'll figure it out. These groups have people with high credentials in space, scientific and professional medical fields, and they have this authoritarian approach too to the alien agenda, and they are sharing this with their audience, promoting occult practices to integrate communication with ET beings. So some of the practices they are pushing the narrative is CE5, CE6 encounters, astral projection, out-of-body experiences, puja ceremonies, meditating, channeling, mediumship, table tipping, Ouija boards, automatic writing, you name it. It's on the list, and they're saying do it all if you want contact. So I'm saying beware.
Yeah. Wow. And this is in government, or is this the entities that are
this isn't just government. This is just, if you Google in contact with extraterrestrial beings, perhaps these groups will pop up.
Yeah.
And they're foundations that have formed to promote spiritual contact with these, what they call alien beings, and they're even offering tutorials how to connect with them, but by doing occult practices. And I just want to read from the Bible. 1 Timothy 4:1 says, "Now the Spirit expressively says that in latter times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teaching of demons." And this is what we have today.
This is exactly what's going on today.
Yeah. And so it's evident that this is more than just, an odd UFO encounter here and an experience there. This is a whole, what would you call that? A program. This is a whole thing happening.
Yeah. It's a huge, almost universe they've created to try to make, how a lot of Hollywood, for instance, Marvel calls their Marvel system a Marvel universe. They've got characters that they've developed. They've got a plot they've developed. They have an end game they've developed. This whole universe of deception that they've developed is being played out right now, is what you're saying, right?
That's right. And I just want to make a point loud and clear that if a person, I want all people to come away from that. I am here as a servant of the Lord, dedicating my life to helping people come away from that. And it gets me emotional just talking about it. Sorry.
No, I understand. It's a huge deception, and many people are involved in it, and they don't know how deep they are in it before it's too late. And that's the whole point of doing this channel. That's the whole point of doing this website. It's amazing to me. Just as I got into it, people say, "Oh, this is a really dark topic. You shouldn't dwell on this stuff." It's a deception. We're told of immense deception that's going to come. And what are we supposed to do? Just sit around and say, I'm not going to talk about that because it's not bright enough. It's not good enough. We need to expose the darkness, the Bible says.
That's what I'm here to do. And if anyone who's having contact with these beings and you think they're aliens, here to help you, I just want to share this with you. Test the being, test the spirit. In Jesus' name, you can test the spirit. In Jesus' name, those demonic entities will flee. They are not aliens. They are demonic entities. They are demons. And they will flee right before your eyes in Jesus' name. The Bible tells us to test all spirits.
All spirits.
And when they are tested, they will simply vanish. And Hosea 4:6 says, "My people perish through lack of knowledge." And 1 John 4:1, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world." And I found Jesus after my own spiritual warfare battle. And I submitted and I begged him for help, to help me, and he did. And he took me out of all of it. And I clearly heard his words, set apart. And he gave me commandments to follow. He told me to pray, and I prayed spiritual warfare prayers, and I was delivered.
Wow.
He set me apart. He brought me out of darkness into the light. And this phenomena completely stopped. I don't see UFOs anymore.
Wow.
And I don't want to. Everything's stopped. If you need help, come to newtochrist.com.au. We've got Rescue Remedy to help every person that needs help. I can walk you through this every step of the way. And if you're in New Age, occult, whether you're doing other spiritual practices like yoga, anything, Reiki, all demonic, come out of it now. I'm sharing everything I can to help these people. And it's just my greatest pleasure to help people see the truth in what Jesus is. He's the way, the truth, and the life. There's nothing else, not Buddha, not Allah, nothing, no one. It's just Jesus.
No one has it.
And so all the wars, the battles, the politics, the life battles that we face, daily dramas, it's all about the same thing. It's a spiritual war we're in, and it's happening now whether we see it or not. And it's happening all over the world. And the devil roams around like a roaring lion, seeking who he's going to devour. So this is also a battle for your soul. When you come to Jesus and receive salvation through the Lord, he will save you and set you free. When your time comes, you will go to heaven, not to hell. This is important. It's about your soul. It's about salvation.
Yes.
And you don't want any part of that pathway of destruction, because it will come. It will come. So I implore everyone, talk to him today, call to him, ask him to set you free, call upon him. And knowing the Bible is our truth, we stand on the truth, and that Jesus is the way. Jesus in your life is a relationship with him. And Bradley, I just want to thank you for allowing me to speak on your show and getting the message out. And I hope it's had some impact.
Absolutely. And how you're over there in Australia, in the land down under. So do you do, for people that may not be in your area, do you do counseling over Skype, Zoom, or any other way?
Most of my clients are based in the USA or other parts of the world. I very rarely have people from Australia, so I operate with Zoom, and we just set up a time and a place and that matches our time schedule, and we just go from there. I don't charge. I do it all because I love the Lord and I want to bring people to him, and there's no charge whatsoever, and however long it takes, whether it be 3 sessions, 5 sessions, it really doesn't matter. I'm here for the people.
All right. Well, I totally understand if you do charge someday. So if this video is old and she does start charging, that's totally fine, because she could get inundated someday. Because I truly believe that this thing is going to it's going to explode here pretty soon. And they're going to need more than just you to try to help people out with this thing. And I really, really appreciate you telling your story and showing us the true statistics of what's going on here, giving a whole bunch of new terminology, which I'm not going to go research, but at least gives us a little bit of an earworm, so we know exactly what to watch out for, and those sound bites that give us recognition on what is the dangerous parts of this stuff. Just like when someone says it's all light and love, that's just fascinating to me. That should raise red flags in everything we do. But so if someone was to reach out to you, is it through that website? Can you tell us the name of that website again?
Yes, it's it's the number 2, so newtochrist.com.au, and there's a place where you can fill out your contact details and just shoot me an email, and we'll just go from there.
Thank you so much, Lee, for coming on the show tonight. And I'm looking forward to probably having you out here again, but when we start having these things become a bigger problem in the world.
Yes, definitely. I'd gladly come back. Thank you, Bradley. Thank you very much for having me on your show.